Welcome everybody to the Thursday noon Road Gateway Rotary Club meeting, the fun club. And let's invite Jim Huber to come up when you finish gambling and do the pledge for us.
Join the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Weight test of all the things that we think, say, or do. First, is the truth. Second, is that they are all concerned. Third, will build better will and better friendships. And fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned. Thank you. I think I haven't memorized by now.
Luke's is an inspiration, whether it says anything or not, right? Come on up, Luke.
Okay, as I move toward my 80th birthday, I spend more time thinking about how circular life is. And I was thinking about a piece that I remembered from Shel Silverstein's book, Where the Sidewalk Ends. So this is the little boy and the old man. Said the little boy, sometimes I drop my spoon. Said the old man, I do that too. The little boy whispered, I wet my pants. I do that too, laughed the little old man. Said the little boy, I often cry. The old man nodded, so do I. But worst of all, said the boy, it seems grown-ups don't pay attention to me. And he felt the warmth of a wrinkled hand. I know what you mean, said the little old man.
Do you have any visiting Rotarians? How about Rotarians with guests? One sec.
Today is my pleasure to introduce the parents of our student service of ourselves winner for the month. And we have Juan and Lori Redu.
On Zoom, we have a friend of ours, Annette and Brett, although Brett's named on there, visiting, and they're interested in maybe joining the club.
I would like to introduce you to Annika Farouk. She is one of the nurse practitioners at Valley Immediate.
I'm Bonnie Kallenberg. I'm not a visitor. I'm just not here a lot. That's right. Here I am. And I've come with a visitor, Sarah Wagner. And she is part, I said with the N, even though I said I wasn't going to, Wager. And she is one of the owners of Oregon Books. And not only that, yeah, I know. And she's interested, and she also was kind enough to let us collect the readers. And I really feel like we collected so many readers because Oregon Books is such an institution in this town, and people knew where to take their readers for the point in time count. So thank you again for doing that for us.
Wow. Chief of dignitaries, visitors, happy to have you all here. I have a couple of announcements, and if others have announcements, if you just want to line up here. The first is that our next board meeting is January 22nd, and it will be at 5:30 at All Care, the All Care building, for those of you Blue Badgers who need to attend a board meeting in order to get some exposure. And the in the Navigator, Steve referred to Deb Amin's plan for the January social gathering, and what that actually is, it's going to be combined with our Super Bowl party. So details to come on that, but it's all one and the same. We're just, the holidays got away from us. Okay, next, come on up, Jody.
Well, good news on June the 5th. I spoke with Sunny Wolf Charter School yesterday, and actually this morning, And they are very, very excited for us to participate with them again this year. The principal had actually been a teacher there when Banner Bank first did Shoes That Fit back in, I think it was 2019 or 18. With Sunny Wolf, and so they're very excited. They all of the teachers still continue to talk about it over and above. They have 93 students. We will be able to provide shoes to all of those students. We also have, ultimately, just with our grant and our matching funds, we can provide 133 and a third pair of shoes. So I know Val was talking to me yesterday, and there was 27 at Riverside and 4 at Parkside. So we'll actually ask some of them to bump them up so that we can get them provided too, make sure we use all of our funds. But it's gonna be started, it's gonna be on the way, and we're hoping to make sure that we're able to get the shoes to the kids prior to spring break. So they might be able to have a fun spring break without hurting feet to it. Anyway, excited guys. Okay, I have 2 announcements about legal. One's really short. This is a Porch Dance fundraiser update. Suzanne Levine, is she here? Had some work done by a construction company, and they told them about Porch Dance, and she gave me the lead. I found the email online and sent him the package, and he's going to donate. So how simple is that? So I think we all know somebody in business that might be a Porch Fest sponsor. Just give us their name. That's all you need. Just give us their name. Okay, so I'm gonna switch subjects and talk about the American Exchange Project. Now, I just found out about this, so I am still learning. But it's a like a remember exchange for change that Linda Hugel did, and yeah. So it's very similar to that, but it's nationwide. So they've chosen Grants Pass, Oregon as the rural area, and we will send 19 kids to I don't know where. To a city, and we're getting 19 kids here. Now, this is kind of last minute. I know we have to select the families by, we have to have enough families apply by the 30th, and then they'll be selected from that application group. But the host families are needed, and their job is only to feed them breakfast in the morning, drive them to the activity, and when they're done with the activity, pick them up, feed them dinner, and provide a bed. So it's not that burdensome, I don't think. Anyway, I think it's a great opportunity. It's a national program. It was on Good Morning America, so you know they're gonna get lots of press coverage, so I think it'd be fun to be part of the group. I have some flyers here if you're interested, and remember, applications are due by January 30th. Okay, this is a quick book report from Road Gateway Rotary Reads Library. We met last night to talk about our previous book, which was On Freedom by Timothy Snyder. And there was a lot of good conversation. We were over at the competitor. But we did have a really fun time and interesting discussion. One of the things that they say about On Freedom that's important is that we are somewhat unpredictable. And so in light of that, we decided to choose another novel, and we're only going to read it for a week or a month. So it is James by Percival Everett. Some of us have read it already, but a really interesting novel that is a twist on Huckleberry Finn. So all of you be unpredictable, get James and start reading. And I think the beginning of March is when we will talk about it. That's it.
Hi, I just wanted to say, some of you signed up at the front when you came in. We have lots of guests today. If you want the newsletter, just put your email address on here, and we get the newsletter out once a week before the meetings, and then you know exactly what the club's doing at any particular time. So anybody want me to hand this to them right now? Okay, I'll put it at the, okay, and then I'll put it, it will go to the, pool table after that. Thanks.
Speaking of the pool table, there's a special table for the Super Bowl pool. Remember, the purpose of the Super Bowl pool is to get us the status of every Rotarian every year E-rate. So it's an easy way to do it, and the incentive is that for $125 square, you could get a Paul Harris Fellow Award if you win, which normally takes $1,000 of donations to the foundation. So instructions are up there. I went through it last week in detail. Ask me any questions that you have. I'll try to be stationed over by the pool. We have about 25 squares left on the first pool. I'm sure we'll go over into a second pool. And you don't have to know anything about football. It's basically like a raffle, except instead of drawing a ticket out of a bag, you wait till the end of a football game and you get the last digits of the two scores that the two teams have, and you have a box that matches up in there, and that tells you who wins. We'll have door prizes at the watch party. Debbie's up here because she's the yeah, she's the gonna organize the whole party for us at the Grants Castle Museum of Art. It's February 9th. The doors will open at 3. The game starts at 3:30. And we ask that you bring a door prize if you want to help us with that. And you
This is going to be the replacement for, this is going to be our social. I've heard a lot of you say that your schedules are full and there's so much going on. This is a way for us to get efficient with our play and party time. So you don't like football, let's plan to do stuff for people that are not interested in football. Anybody can come to this party and we're gonna have fun. Bring your party pants.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, great. I think we have our service about self student, Lisa. Do you want to come up and introduce her? And she's from Road River. We're delighted her parents are here.
Well, today it is my pleasure to introduce our January, the first one of 2025, Student Service Above Self Award winner from Road River Junior Senior High, and it's Amanda Ledoux. And she is on Zoom.
Can we see the camera? Can we see her?
Amanda, do you want to undo your Zoom?
There she is.
Or there she is. Okay. And Sarah Wicks, her academic counselor, should be there too. There she is. And Sarah will tell us a little bit about why Amanda was chosen for the award and introduce her so she can tell us a little about herself. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, yeah, I have had the pleasure of being Amanda's school counselor, her volleyball coach, her National Honor Society advisor. So I get to spend a lot of time with Amanda, and she's one of our best and brightest. She's a strong student, she's a strong athlete, but she also cares about people, and we love Amanda. We love that about Amanda. And I'm a little sad she's graduating, but excited for everything that she's going to do.
Okay, Amanda, you want to speak to us? Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to get this award. So I was told you guys were gonna have some questions for me.
Oh, you know, I'm thinking you would tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got interested in service, or what your
yeah.
classes are, and tell us about your family, and tell us a little bit of your story.
So I joined my school's leadership program my freshman year. I had to go through an interview process to get into it. And it's a super fun class that opens up a bunch of opportunities for me. And it's how I actually got into community service, because every year we're required to do a community service project, but also it gave me a connection to the Red Cross. And I get to act as our school's blood drive program leader. So I manage scheduling all the appointments, speaking with people who work at Red Cross to make sure the blood drive is going to run smoothly. And it's been a great opportunity for me. My sister actually ended up doing phlebotomy for a little bit, so that was cool, getting to see what she does behind the scenes. But it's just great that I get to play a part in actually saving people's lives in high school.
Quite cool. And do you have a favorite teacher or favorite class or favorite volunteer activity?
So my favorite subject is probably either science or math, but I think my favorite teacher has to be my history teacher, which is also my leadership advisor, Hillary Wallace. Can't say that I love history, but I do love her as a person and as a teacher.
Yeah. And so what kind of plans do you have for the future?
So once I graduate, I want to go to RCC to finish all my prereqs. I'll be joining as like a second year-ish. So I'll only need 1 year to finish my associates, and then I want to transfer up to OSU to get a master's in veterinary science and eventually become a vet.
Okay, congratulations. So, you know, Rotary is a service club, so we're delighted that you're already active out there helping people. Anybody in the audience have a question for Amanda?
And then, I was just curious in regards to your veterinary work that you're planning on doing, are you looking at large animals, small animal, and are you coming back to Grants Pass where we very much need you?
So I haven't totally decided what I want to do so far as just being like a general vet or specifically like exotic or something of that nature. I really just like helping all animals. I do think large animal would be a really cool opportunity to work with like horses and cattle and things like that. But vets are needed everywhere, so I'm not really sure where I'll end up quite yet.
Another question? Okay.
Congratulations, and you mentioned athlete, that you were an athlete as well, so explain what kind of sports and things that you like to do.
So I just got finished playing volleyball, so that season's over. I'm sad to see it go. And I'm currently playing basketball. I'm dressed up for a home game today, and then after basketball, I will be going on to play softball.
Wow, well, congratulations. Let's give her a round of applause. Bye-bye. Well, we have a lot of great young people in the community. Good job, parents, parentals. Okay, introducing our speaker, I think, is Deb Amin.
Thank you. It is an honor to introduce Bert, yes, sure, Bert Etling, to speak with us today. That you can read about him in the Navigator. Steve always does a great job of summarizing people's work and their bit of their history. We learned of Bert in an unusual way. Jamie and I were at a fundraiser out at recognizing the Applegator news history in the Applegate. And we were sitting at a table and this gentleman came up and joined us at the table and we're all chit-chatting and having a great time. And, you know, he's a nice guy and blah, blah, blah. And pretty soon, you know, the program starts and we settle down to listen. And lo and behold, they call forward the gentleman that's sitting at our table to be recognized for the evening of all the things he's been doing in the Applegate. I'm sitting there having lived in the Applegate for 20 years going, he is that guy. So it was delightful, and Jeannie and I looked at each other and said, so, long story short, we communicated, we exchanged business cards, and it'll be a delight, and it's an honor and pleasure to introduce Bert. He made such an impact in the Applegate Valley. I was just part of a team with working with the Carpenter Foundation, recognizing a lot of the work that's being done out in the Applegate Valley. And it just warmed my heart knowing that there's people like Bert and Jack Shipley, many leaders that have made such a difference in that area. So please join me in providing a warm Rotary welcome, Bert Etling.
There we go. That's the first test. The 5-way test. I'm glad to be here. Grants Pass, and how many of you read a newspaper? How many of you pay attention to the news? Okay, how many of you do that with a print newspaper?
Wow, okay, that's impressive. How many of you do it online?
Gosh, that's good.
You both, that's good, that's appropriate. You're fortunate here in Grants Pass to still have a wonderful local family-owned newspaper, the Daily Courier, that does a good job, you know, covering the community and being fair and informative and serving the public. I've spent my career in community journalism, and the town always feels like it's their newspaper. If you screw up, and everybody screws up once in a while, they'll say, "What are you doing with our newspaper?" And they want you to do a good job, and they want you to do a good job because it's essential to living our lives, really. Be that civically, culturally, or economically. You need to know what's going on. Need to know what the issues are in the community, who's got solutions, what the proposed solutions are, and you know, come election time, which one of them you're gonna vote for. You also want to know what the new restaurant is that opened or something, and that's something that local journalists cover and provide in their publication. Sadly, in the last 15 years, 1,800 newspapers have closed across the country. There's a steep decline in local journalism generally, and local journalism. And it's driven by the migration of money, you know, all the money from print advertising to online advertising.
doing?
Largely Google is getting the lion's share of it, Facebook also, but we're talking about like $80 billion a year that's been, that used to go into printing newspapers and distributing them. That goes into Google and Facebook and other online advertising.
Go.
But there's a crisis. here.
Another day,
What
another
happens
day.
when those newspapers go away is that civic participation declines. The voting rates, these are, you know, academic studies, voting rates go down, the number of candidates for office go down. Interestingly, and I never would have thought this, that the rates on bonds that local agencies have to pay go up. Because they're working as hard or paying as much attention because people aren't keeping an eye on them and paying attention to them and letting the public know what's going on in those meetings. I talked about the community journalism. I started in Central California in the town where I grew up, went to high school, came back, worked for that newspaper, ended up being the editor there in Solvang, California, in the San Ynez Valley. And then I went to Cambria, California Central Coast, on the coast there, and then came up here. My partner had a son living in Ashland, and on one visit here, they were advertising for an editor, so I applied and got that job at the Ashland Daily Tidings in 2014. And the Tidings has been on a journey that's pretty typical of the small papers that have closed, and the Tidings is now one of them. It was founded in 1888, I think, 1889. Became a daily right after World War I, so it's in a small town, which is great that it had a daily newspaper. It was locally owned until about 1980, and then went to relatively local owners until it merged with the Mail Tribune and Southern Oregon Media Group in 2000. And then it became part of the Dow Jones Group, which is Rupert Murdoch owned. And they sold it in 2013, I think, to Gatehouse, which is a large corporate hedge fund outfit that makes its money by spending less than that remaining ad revenue. And they do that just by slashing staff generally, because that's the biggest expense. 80% of the newspaper cost is payroll. And then it was sold to another entrepreneur, Stephen Saslow, in 2017. And a couple years later, whatever business model he's working on, I still haven't figured out what it was. They started doing the cutbacks, and so I was part of the 2019 wave where some of us were let go. And then the Tidings closed in 2021. They further drew it into the Medford Mail Tribune. as you know, as a section, and then it was like, well, we're not even gonna do a section, we'll just have some Ashland stories, and then the website went away in 2021. And then the Mail Tribune stopped printing in 2022 in the autumn and went away altogether in January 2023. Which was a tragedy for Medford and Southern Oregon, because that was a, you know, Pulitzer winning newspaper in the 30s for taking a courageous stand on local issues, which is what a newspaper should do. That worked out great for me, ironically, as these things sometimes do, because I ended up at the Applegator, the aforementioned Applegator. I was editor there from 2020 until 2023, so 4 years. And what was, there were two things that were great about it. One was it was a local community paper, which I had done in Sullivan and Cambria and Ashland, and with a strong sense of pride and place. And I liked that level of journalism because it tends to be in news that if it bleeds, it leads. And the larger your town, you know, be it 50, 100 million people in the town, the more of those accidents, the more bad news, and it kind of drives out the good news, all the good stuff that people are doing, and the people stories and the stuff that your neighbor's doing, and you know, whether the scouts are having a car wash on the weekend, that stuff doesn't make the paper because it's driven out by all the bad news. So I like the local stuff. And here, and I went from the Tidings, which served a town of 20,000 people, to the Applegator, which served a community of 20,000 people, except instead of 4 square miles, it was 700 square miles. But it was, you know, spread out over that watershed, and that's a great unifying thing. We had that in St. Inez. We served the St. Inez Valley River watershed, and here it was, you know, the Applegator watershed. So that was, you know, it was in my sweet spot, in my wheelhouse for the kind of work I've been doing in journalism. But the other thing was that it was a nonprofit. And with all these, you know, newspapers have traditionally either been owned by a single owner, which can work out great, like the, you know, the Chandlers in LA or the Grahams in Washington for a long time, until it doesn't work out so great, like the LA Times or the Washington Post. You know, the owners, if the owners love the institution and the work that they're doing and the principles that they take, it works out great. If they want to use it as a tool to advance their own interests, it doesn't work out so great. And you're fortunate to hear that the Courier is a good journalism, it follows good journalism ethics and has a good editor. Times and Post still have good editors, but the owners are kind of wanting to fiddle with things, which isn't so great. And I had, you know, both. I had great owners in my career, and I had crappy owners, which is why I changed, because I loved all the papers I worked for. But I also worked for a corporation, and corporations are the one wonderful thing about corporations. You know what the motive is, it's the bottom line. And so their behavior is rational and it's predictable. So that's great. But the Applegator wasn't either of those. It was a nonprofit and was funded by the people who it served. So there's this direct thing where you're a reader and a donor, and the paper serves you. It's a very congenial collaboration. With traditional media, it's people advertise, and so the advertisers pay for the paper, and the readers pay a little bit, but you know, like 20% of the cost. So it's heavily subsidized by the advertisers, and you know, and then people shop, and hopefully they shop at the advertiser's place. That model is broken and gone away. So we need to figure out a new way to deliver that journalism. And the Applegator's been doing it for 30 years. That was the anniversary party that I met Deborah at. And it started out as part of the watershed newsletter, basically, the Applegate Watershed Association, which was a nonprofit with its own mission. And after a while, they decided the newspaper wasn't really advancing the mission as much as they were having to pay for it. So they were going to drop it. And the community rose up, and this was 2008, I think, and said, we're going to start a nonprofit and keep it going. And that's what they did. And, you know, and it's been 6 times a year. I think it's still 4 times a year. I added extra addition at the end for, probably for fundraising purposes. In 2000, when COVID hit, and right after I started, so it was about a month in when COVID came around. The advertising, the revenue model for the Applegator was mostly well, it was about a third donations, about a third fundraising, an in-person fundraising event, and about a third advertisers. Sponsors, you're supposed to call them, nonprofits. We couldn't do the in-person thing because of COVID. And the treasurer was going, oh, we have to make plans, save a little money to wind down operations, close stuff up. And I was poking around, and there was an outfit called the Nonprofit Institute for Nonprofit News, nationwide thing, founded about 2009. At that time, it had about 180 members. I applied. They accepted us. We had to send samples of our journalism and show that we were really doing a job in serving the community. They passed that bar. And that got us into Newsmatch, something called Newsmatch, where national funders, including the Miami Foundation, which gets their money from the Knight family, which was part of the Knight River organization. They want to encourage local growth, and so they do it by matching donations in November, December, up to a certain amount. So we did that with the Applegator, and it was a great success. Saved our bacon, you know, we kept going, and at that time, IN had about a little under 200 members. We were like number 190 or something, and like the second one in Oregon. And now, you know, Ashland News, we became members a year and a half ago, and now there's like 450 members. And this is a nationwide thing, and you can see that model going up. So it's something that's needed, and we just have to, you know, figure out a way to pay for it. So the Applegator is a great model. We've started that nonprofit in Ashland. How many of you have ever looked at the Ashland News website? Probably not many. Well, somebody said it's a community paper online. That's what it is. I mean, and we've got a homepage, and it's almost all local Ashland news. We cooperate to some extent with the Medford paper, which is now the Rogue Valley Times, which was part of EO Media, which has been sold to Carpenter Group, which is one of those corporate things that is cutting, slashing, and burning. They recently went through a round of layoffs, so we'll see how that works out. I know the people working there. I used to work with some of them with the Medford paper, Medford Daily Tidings, and so I'm rooting for them. I'm not so much rooting for the owners. So we're trying to keep serving it, and we're trying to manage our resources by, you know, sharing articles. They use our Ashland articles, and we use some of their county or regional articles. There's a great need to get through this to keep serving things. How am I doing on time? Should we do the questions or?
Actually. You actually have a few more minutes if you like, but it's absolutely fascinating, and yeah, would you like to take questions now, or would you like to say a few more things?
I'll go ahead and take questions.
Yeah, questions. Yeah, oh, good. Here's the deal. We wander around with the mic because the people on Zoom can't hear, so we're.
I'll be
back and forth. Here, Tina Marie's going to first. Thank you.
My question is just what you might know about the Pipe Fork situation. Last, I think we agreed instead was the property was grouped together with other properties for an auction, which I don't think came off. So what's new with the Pipe Fork?
No, I haven't stayed current on that since I left the applicator, but I did get a press release this morning from Luke Rudiger, who's at the Siskiyou Association. And the headline is "The BLM is clear cutting forests above Rouge." Now that's, I think Pipe Fork is more out by Williams, right? Yeah. So this is not the Pipe Fork situation, but so he's saying the so-called salvage operations are more like clear cutting I can't tell you more.
You know, the Courier has been moving into Jackson County more and more. I'm wondering why you wouldn't partner with them.
You should probably ask them, they tend to take a very competitive, edge towards it. They're a traditional paper, in a lot of ways, and most of it's good. I think we're gonna need to become more cooperative and competitive. I've been in newspaper wars and a couple of the papers I was at and was on the winning side, but. And it's a great thing because it keeps you on your toes, you do a better job when you think somebody else is gonna beat you, you don't wanna get beat, so you lean into it more. They're still on the old model, which is the paywall, which probably times it's too. But I don't think they would do it. They've got their own reporter covering Ashland. Some of the meetings, and then we've got more, we've got 2 full-time reporters in a small town, which is a lot these days. But they very often have a reporter at the Ashland City Council meetings. When they're tasked.
You mentioned something that I've noticed. I come from Walter Cronkite, New York Times era, and I have noticed an increasing tendency to lean to the if it bleeds, it leads, and the kind of negative bad news approach the media takes. Is there I am concerned as to how that affects society, and I'm wondering if there is any way that organizations can lean more in the direction of reporting good news.
I haven't particularly noticed that, but what I've noticed is the clickbait thing driving things. And one thing I did need to mention, it reminds me, those bad news things, you'll often see that, and I go through and little alerts on your phone or whatever, and you go to it and there's like 2 sentences, about some awful thing that happened, bus goes off a cliff or something. They don't tell you where it is, and the reason they're doing that, it's not for journalism, it's not to report the news and stuff, it's to sell it's so they get a fraction of a cent for the ad that's next to that thing. And that's what all that clickbait thing is, to drive web traffic to a website so they get advertising revenue. And it hardly seems worth it. It's certainly not worth your time, and it's a degradation of the information space. And there's a lot of that going on, and it's scary, frankly. We have somebody from Kobe here. I was on a panel with Bob Wise, the general manager, last week, and Heidi Wright, the former COO of EO Media, and now she's running a nonprofit called For Journalism, FORJ Journalism, one thing we talked about was AI, artificial intelligence. Now the tidings, I had a Google alert. You can set up a thing where it'll search for whatever term you want it to search for, and I've got my name in there. If I'm on the web, I'll know about it. But I put the Ashland Tidings in there, and after the tidings went away, there's nothing for a couple of years, and then about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, it started popping up again. And somebody had taken over the Ashland Tidings website, the old URL, ashlandtidings.com, and was populating it with basically plagiarized content. they would take stories from Ashland News or OPB or the Oregonian or the Daily Courier, but Rock Valley Times. And they would run it through, I call it running it through a blender. They would run it through artificial intelligence, rewrite it a little bit, and then they put it on their website and hope to get traffic. And so it's a shoddy thing, you know, I call it this kind of a Potemkin village. It's like Carnival Barker calling you, come on in, you know, we got news here, and you go in and it's nothing. Nothing to see here, folks, move along. So it's challenging times, and I think, you know, we need to support, you know, I hope you all subscribe to the Daily Courier, and we need to support people, reliable, legitimate providers of that information, because it is so important for living our life.
Let's take one.
What kind of a working relationship do you have with Curtis Hayden in the sneak preview?
Curtis is great. Curtis is a character. Yeah. You're not Curtis. I've never met Curtis. I've talked to him on the phone, and we exchange emails and stuff. We have a friendly relationship. Curtis, he runs a free ad for us. Like he does for other nonprofits, that says, you know, go to Ashland News. The sneak preview, maybe you know, is well, that's right. They have outlets, franchises in various towns around town. So it's a monthly, I call it a shopper. Curtis would not like that. He says, we're not a shopper. Because he writes a bunch of stuff and there is news in it. So he runs our ads. We recently ran one for him for the best of issue, you know, trying to get people to vote on that. Curtis took us to task for our journalism with the famed Ashland New Year's Day flood of 1999. Is that right? And he says it was actually January 2nd. It was like 12:30 and 1 in the morning the next day. It wasn't on the 1st. It's not the New Year's Day flood. So we ran a little note that said, you know, but people still call it the New Year's Day flood.
Thank you so much. That was just really, really interesting. And congratulations on your career. It must be really cool to get to do something you love, you know, not to have to do it for the money, although a lot of journalists don't make that much money, but thank you. I know for me, I probably speak for a whole lot of us, I get a thrill out of reading the paper ever since I was 8 or 9, or started to get it after everybody else, like my brothers had the sports section and, you know, all that. And I feel really lucky to be in a place where we still get a physical paper, and, you know, kind of scary for how long that would be. Even during my career, when I traveled, I would read the USA Today outside the hotel room door every day, even though everybody said that wasn't news. I just loved having a paper. So thank you, really great and interesting. And thank you for coming all the way over here today. It was good. Okay, are we up for sergeants now? We have the infamous and famous Kelly Mooney coming up. And while she's coming up, I want to point out another Rotarian who deserves attention today, and that's Jody McDonald. She all by herself, it took her one phone call to wrap up the shoes that fit thing, and we've learned that sometimes management, my committee, doesn't work out. So from now on, if you need help, go right to Jody. All right, thanks a lot. You're great.
So I love it that we've been talking about community, because that's what I would like to talk about today. And so I have titled what I'm going to be talking about, a bench is not a bed. And so I took that, I stole it from a London newspaper that said they and other cities in the UK have announced that they have developed a charter to end what they call, and I quote, rough sleeping, unquote. This charter calls on over 100 businesses, charities, churches, and us, community groups, to report people in need and making efforts to help find solutions. That's why I'm talking to you today, because I can't imagine anybody better than us to help find solutions. And it is all about finding solutions. I don't know how many of you have been out to J Street. I have, and several of us have. And I've got to tell you, it's inhumane. I would not treat pets the way those people are being treated there. And I thought, we got to come up with solutions. We're intelligent people. We can find ways to do this. So I'm sort of tasking all of you to help come up with solutions, because I think that we've got a lot of really great minds here. So I thought I'd throw a few things out. What are the causes? What are the causes of all these people being homeless? Well, we know it's housing cost. Housing costs they can't afford. There aren't enough houses. There aren't enough apartments. There aren't enough dwellings. But we also know that inflation has paid a price in this. And also you have the evil twins of mental illness and drugs. And that's also a piece of this that we do have to recognize, but does that mean they should be in rough housing? So I wanted to also talk about, okay, what are some solutions that have already been made? Beaverton I read about one that they have called, it's called Safe Parking Program. And they will provide places that they're already doing this, safe places for people that have cars. They can park them and not be ticketed and not be harassed. They can go there to sleep. Okay, that's a bit of a solution, isn't it? So then Wasco County has used a survey tool that I think was a good idea, because one of the problems that we have is we have a lack of engagement with our homeless communities. So we don't know why they're homeless. We don't know what they're thinking, why they're there, what they need, what they would like. And so Wasco County is using this survey tool to partner agencies with what they're finding. So now, oh, in Wasco County, another thing that I noticed about them that was really very good is they said, start small. Maybe pick one group to start helping, the veterans, children. You could come up with several, how about families, people that have families that are homeless. So you may be able to start there. You don't want to maybe start huge and just say, I can solve all of it, because we know that that hasn't happened. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to task all of you to come up with something. We have a few minutes if any of you have a brilliant idea already, but I would like to have these written down, because I think our council, our commissioners, and many others need to have this information. And it shouldn't just be our Rotary. All Rotaries should be buying in on giving us information. Now, I will tell you what my husband thinks, which I thought is really not a bad idea. He says, why don't we have something like the CCC camp did? Why don't we have barracks? Why don't we have, when the CCC camps were alive and well, the people that were staying in them also worked. And I do agree with him that many of these people would like to work. And what they worked for in the city afforded them a bed and meals. So that's a start. At least it got them out of the cold. But then where do they go? And I'm looking at Doug Walker thinking, gee, Doug has all kinds of ideas of permanent housing for them, because I'm laughing because I know that's a really big problem, is not enough housing. So, do you have something you'd like to say about this situation? And all of you, I would like to task, would please write something down. And I will compile all of it. And we can maybe then present it later. And then let's get this going and get it sent to the people who have some way of possibly making some of it work. We only have a few minutes left, and I know that there are people that would like to say something, so maybe you can include it in a happy buck. Maybe you can include it in a happier buck. Okay, happy bucks. What do we have?
Two happy buck stories. So one, this week we had our first 4 students from Gladiola sign up for construction training class. Thank you, Daniela, for pushing that. And I'm saying with the Gladiola teachers, they've been amazingly flexible and working hard to make this happen. So they deserve a lot of credit, and Daniela and Project Youth Plus too. And then the second happy buck story, I'm gonna need to get some money, babe. I don't need money. Thank you. Thank you. My allowance. Yeah. Second happy buck story is newspaper. So last couple of months, we've had this, newspapers are disappearing from our front porch stoop area. What's going on? First couple of times, we're looking at each other like, what'd you do the paper? What'd you do the paper? I don't know. Blaming me. I think I got blamed a lot for that. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe the little kid next door, Zach, who's new, comes over now. He's kind of introduced himself to us, and he's kind of comes over and hangs out a little bit. Maybe he's taking the newspaper. So looking at Zach sideways, what's he doing with their newspaper? Yeah, maybe not. And then one day I see the newspaper delivery person who's new-ish to this. Maybe he's been doing it 3 or 4 months. Pulls in, and I'm kind of working in the garage, looking up, and I see him, so I'm assuming he throws the newspaper there, and I'm watching him most of the time, but my head's up now, so I don't see the whole thing. So then he leaves, and 2 minutes later, I walk out, and the newspaper's not there. So what the hell's going on? He's older, maybe he's got a little dementia, I don't know what's going on. And this keeps happening, whatnot, and everything, and this is like a 3-minute period that time when he delivered it that I missed it, and then about a week ago, she walks out 20 minutes after the newspaper was delivered, because we both see him through the window walking up to the front door and dropping what we think he's dropping the newspaper, but so he's gone anyway. So anyway, long story short, go looking around, there's newspapers shoved in the bushes between us and the neighbor's house next door. So it's gotta be an animal. So it must be an animal taken. So they got a little dog, a little terrier dog next door. So it's okay, it's gotta be that dog. But they also have 2 very precocious cats. So it might be the cats too. They come and do something. So we've discovered that the animals are still in the newspaper, so that's nice. Now we know what's going on with their newspapers. We won't blame each other. Then I go over there and I knock on the door, and there's our latest missing newspaper sitting at the front porch. He says, yeah, I don't know, the newspaper's just showing up. We assume we got newspapers. Yeah, and then yesterday Zach comes over and he's hanging out with Beth for a few minutes, talking about whatever they're talking about. And Zach's 7. And he says, yeah, it's either my cat or my dog, or it could be my raccoon or my skunk. I don't know. Something's taking it. So we've got the news.
I'm going for the right hand.
Okay, I wanted to say, for the new people that are here visiting, we have like 7 married couples or partners in this club. So welcome to anybody that wants to join this club. It's like going to be the partner club pretty soon. Anyway, the newspaper. As soon as that newspaper comes, I love to go get the newspaper and it'll open it up. So I love the fact that our guest is here today talking about how we need to support our newspaper to keep this newspaper alive.
I grew up too, with the newspaper every evening. That's the first thing my dad did when he got home was open the paper, and I've gotten it ever since as well. But my happy bucks are for my daughter who lives in Grants Pass. She's the reason that we are here part-time. She published her first children's book called Golly Molly, The Perfect Pony List, and she had her book launch at Oregon Books, which was a huge success. And if you would like to pick up a copy, you can get them there. So happy bucks for her success.
Some happy bucks. First of all, thank you for coming. And I also just want to mention quickly how newspapers can just be part of your family. They become part of the family. When I was a kid, I grew up in Cincinnati. We actually had two newspapers. The morning paper was the Cincinnati Post, or no, the Cincinnati Enquirer, and the evening was the Cincinnati Post. And as kids, we learned you did not touch the newspaper until my father was done with it. But once he was done with sports page, it was fair game. And even today, when my daughter's home, we always sit together and do the crossword puzzle. So I think they feel more than a function of providing news. It's also something that helps bring families together.
I came from a mixed family. My father read the New York Times and my mother read the Wall Street Journal. And I am also going to contribute 7 because I think the newspapers contribute a lot more to the unbiased news.
Have happy bucks for a number of reasons. I wanted for Oregon Books because I love this. So good to see Sarah here because they are one of the sponsors of our Service Above Self program, and every year I just like Sarah, oh, no, yeah, no problem, you know, she just is right there for us, and so thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Bert, I appreciate your joining us today, and echo all everything else that's said. One thing I really like about newspapers is that the wordle in it doesn't go away if you miss it at the end by midnight. And Patty, thanks for the idea of getting a hold of our contractors. I had a trifecta on Monday morning, and I didn't know it because we had the roofers that were up on the roof. We had the garage door repair truck that was parked fixing the garage door, and the doo-doo bus was out there because as of Friday night, our septic tank alarm was on, and there was no use of toilets from Friday night until Monday morning. So lots of happy bucks there.
My happy bucks are for Oregon Books, who participated in our Service Above Self Awards for years now, and we really appreciate that. And for my my students' parents, joining us for acknowledging their child, and it was a great award, great meeting.
Thank you so much, you know. Okay, so we get to next week. So let's be sure, let's send Kelly our ideas. Email and think about it and send them to her. I have one, which has to do with somehow doing a better job managing illegal drugs and people's easy access to those. And I think it's pretty clear, Miss Oregon Books, that we are your people. And we'd love to see you join. And congratulations to our parents on raising such a great kid. We're gonna do the card draw. And let's have. Can you help me get that down? Someone's going in today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, then within the 2 is maybe. I don't know.
Drum roll. Who won?
Oh, there's
It's our parents, that's fantastic. Okay, before we do our top of the day, reminder that the fundraising committee for Porch Fest is meeting right now after this meeting. And this is from Mahatma Gandhi: live as if you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you were to live forever. Thanks, everyone.